Financial analyst Muktar Mohammed joins me in the studio this morning to discuss this. Muktar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, indeed.
I haven't seen you in a long time. Now, what's your take on this recently released numbers from the National Bureau of Statistics?
It's not different from what we're expecting when you look at 11.3 last year and 11.37 this. I mean, 11.3 last month and 11.37. You could relatively say we are flat. You could say we're flat because we still have that 3, but the difference is that we have a 7. So we could say we are flat. Okay. We still maintain it, and we're not surprised about like what is causing this could just be attributed to a stable exchange rate that we have so far. High oil price going up, so we're able to maintain our exchange rate. Then that means the exchange rate, especially in imported goods, still remains very flat. So it's not surprising. And again, but the only surprising there is we said we went into an election year because of the type of liquidity that's involved in an election. But that will not be telling so much in the February inflation rate. But when going forward in March, we may see the reflection on the electoral spending that we incurred from during the electoral year that we just ended.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask you, in 2016 and 2017, we had very high inflation reports. Do you expect Nigeria to struggle with inflation this year?
Yes, we will struggle with inflation, but because that has to do with capacity building in terms of what we import and what we export. And bear in mind that about 70 to 80% of what are consumables in Nigeria are all imported outside of the country. Even if they are not banned, people still have ways of importing it. And again, with the ban on textiles material and possibly the ban on tomatoes, peps, and all that, that could also heighten inflation rate because some of these goods, in terms of movement from point 1 to point 2, is always difficult because of infrastructural challenges. So we might struggle with inflation because the CBN will try to deal with inflation by mopping up. Well, then, when the budget comes to play, is it the budget? Will the National Assembly tickle with the budget? And then we must not forget that we'll still have another challenge coming up, which will be, will the current CBN governor continue to be the CBN governor, or will have a change for somebody else to come in that will have a different idea on how to tackle inflation? All these is what will determine the inflationary figures going forward.
Well, the CBN has targeted a single-digit inflation rate for the country. Now, do you consider that feasible in the near future?
Yes, it's visible because when you look where we're coming from when they came, we are doing about 18-point-something% at the time they came in. So now we are doing about 11.3, 11.37. So if you look at that, it's visible. But whether it's visible this year is one thing that we'll just hope happen because you must not forget that, like I said, all these things is depending on how much cost we have in terms of our crude oil export and also stability of the exchange rate. If we continue like this, we may get there. And the CBN is trying to encourage local investors, especially in agricultural sector. So all this may, at the end of the day, bring down inflationary rate because most of these things that were imported will be gotten here in the country.
I know that you already mentioned that the exchange rate is key, but how can we achieve that single-digit inflation in the medium to long term?
The medium term is what the CBN is already doing, mopping up of liquidity in the system, trying to encourage local production of some of these goods that are being exported. But the major challenge we have in terms of inflation rate in Nigeria has to do with our petroleum product, which we still have about 70 to 80% being imported. And so that causes a little bit volatility in the exchange rate, which in turn begins to affect every other vices in the Nigerian economy. So that is just the challenge. If we are able to deal with that, then we can relatively say we'll get there.
Okay, well, now I have to switch over to MTN really quickly because, as we know, they had a very interesting last couple of months now, but the company has stacked up its earnings in Nigeria with its 2018 full-year service revenue hitting 1.04 trillion naira. Now, that's about 17.2% over the 884.5 billion naira that it recorded in the previous year, 2017. What's your take on this?
Good results. Fantastic, like you said, with the type of challenge, turbulence they faced. But you must give it to them that they were able to maneuver the turbulence by settling it out of court with government and trying to fight. They had the payment schedule with the government, though they still have a case with the government, which has to do with the tax zone. So we are waiting how that will come to play. But in terms of how they were able to sort out the payment schedule with the government, I think that has helped their bottom line, also especially Nigeria. It's good news for Nigeria because we know before the end of the first quarter of the year, towards the half year, we expect MTN to be listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So that would be good news when you have a company like that coming into the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That will deepen the market, that will encourage foreign investors, and that will have a bandwagon effect in the generality of the market going forward.
Well, thank you, Muktar. I guess it's going to be a great... Oh, well, sorry. Before I let you go, I want to ask how you think the market fared this week.
The market didn't fare very well this week. We've seen the result comes in. Even this morning, when I came in, the market have started struggling because we saw the result, the earning from Access Bank coming, which the profit after tax was good, but in terms of the dividend payout to investors was very poor. And so we saw Access Bank going down. And so that alone tells you that the market these days, as it stands now, is being driven by earnings report because we are still looking for what will be the economic agenda of this present administration going forward.
Exactly.
That will be what will push up the market to whether we still start attracting foreign investors back into the market, then we'll see the market going on the upside. But as it stands now, the market is not going to finish this week positively because of some of the results that have come, especially from a bank like Access Bank. The result, quite all right, was very good, but in terms of the dividend payout, which is majorly what investors in Nigeria look for, 25 kobo was a poor dividend.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of things were stalled economically while, we were waiting for the elections all through last year, and a lot of investors were positioning in terms of like the wait and see strategy. Now, many investors, of course, are still skeptical just post-elections. But how long do you think this is going to go on for? And do you think that those factors are going to change anytime soon?
I think the investors are not so much skeptical again. What most of the investors were looking for in the Nigerian election was just a peaceful transition. That's what they were looking for. They were not looking at the numbers have always been good, but they wanted a peaceful transition. And we may not have recorded relatively peaceful transition in terms of the kind of violence was recorded, pocket of violence recorded in the country. Or in terms of the presidential election, we see the loser going to court and the winner trying to forge ahead. So it gives investors confidence. We could see that already is playing in the bond and the treasury bill, where yield has gone up and foreign investors are beginning to take position in that. So from there, you begin to see it trickling down to the equity market, because the investors actually just want to know, will the election end up peacefully, knowing that the numbers in terms of value of our assets is still very low, and our PE ratios in terms of these assets are still very good. So that's why investors will come to Nigeria. They are not looking at the economic side so much, but they're looking at the relatively peaceful transition from one civilian that will affect the business.
Well, thank you so much, Muktar, for joining me this morning to discuss this. I've been speaking with financial analyst Muktar Mohammed.